1968's Planet of the Apes.
Oh, this is on my list too. This is my number one.
Oh, good. Then we can just knock it out.
Let's
Knock
do
it
it
out of
right
the
now.
park.
Yeah. Let's talk about that movie now. I'll mention another one for my number one or for another one. Planet of the
Planet of
Apes
the Apes.
is an incredible movie.
Planet of the Apes is a genius film. Um, I wondered about which one of the franchise I was going to put on my list because, there are a couple of the sequels that I almost like as much as the first one,
I
but
think the first three are all really great.
when you really think about it, well, I really love Escape. I really love the subversion of what they did in this movie and that movie. You know what I mean? The flipping of the roles that goes on between the humans and the apes, and the ending, which chills me to the bone.
Yeah.
Um,
Mama,
Ugh.
mama. You know they painted that chimpanzee black to make it look more like the suits, like the rubber aesthetic, like prosthetics that they had for the rest of the apes.
the baby chimp in Dawn was way cuter.
I'd have to agree. So, certainly less creepy.
Hashtag cutest fucking thing ever. Anyway,
but it's interesting you brought up that Planet of the Apes is kind of your biggest blockbuster pre-Star Wars because it was very much so the movie.
It was the first thing to have, like, a lot of people give this to Star Wars, and Star Wars really, changed the game. But Planet of the Apes did the whole merchandising thing
I was about
first.
to say, yeah, it was the Star Wars of its day. It definitely paved the way for Star Wars. But more than that, it's another movie where the science fiction. You could almost argue that it's science fantasy, but I think because of the setting, it's science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a lot more about the characters than it is about any particular science fiction idea that I think we're really kind of maybe exploring. I mean, I guess the idea of a society of apes is what we're exploring, but because that's intrinsically more about characters, it feels a lot more like Star Wars. And also because it's a lot more of an action and thriller and adventure movie, that I also think that element really comes to the fore.
It's sad that growing up when we did, there was no way to watch Planet of the Apes for the first time and not know about the twist at the end.
Yeah, I knew when I first saw it.
Because it's just too ingrained in the pop culture.
Yeah.
But I can't help every time I watch it, but just imagine what it must have been like.
I wonder at what point in our pop culture history we were just like, it's okay to spoil Planet of the Apes. Like, nobody cares. Like, it's like
there's just a period of time.
It's
with
like
the
the
movie.
Sixth Sense. It's like nobody cares about spoiling the Sixth Sense anymore. I've never even seen the Sixth Sense.
Yeah, there's I don't even know exactly what the time period is, but there's a certain amount of time after a movie comes out, especially a big hit, where like it's not okay to spoil things.
Yeah.
But within a few months, everybody knows how it ends, regardless of whether they saw it or not. And in some cases, like with Luke, I Am Your Father, and with the Statue of Liberty being exploded on a beach, in some cases it just becomes part of the cultural zeitgeist to the point where you can't get it out.
Definitely. But I think the great thing is it does not hurt the movie at all. I don't think.
No. Even if you already know about the ending, which you do, let's be honest.
Yeah. You
It's
saw
still
that. You saw that episode of The Simpsons. Don't you lie.
It's still a fantastic movie. The people who saw this movie back in the 60s, it must have been an amazing first watch because they didn't know about the ending. But then the second watch would have been just as fascinating because you go in already knowing about the ending, and then you sort of pick up on, wow, this is Earth, and look how it's changed, and like you see it in like a whole new light. And so for us, we just have that second viewing experience all the time.
You know what else really helps it too?
What's that?
The ape characters throughout the entire movie all, they find Taylor, they find this smart human, and they're instantly like, what the fuck is the deal with this? All these humans are dumb animals. They all don't talk. What the hell is the deal with this guy who can write and think and all this? He seems like just one of us. They all take his story that he's an astronaut who's from another planet like he's fucking crazy. Like, even when Cornelius and Zira believe him that he's an intelligent man, they still don't believe that he's an astronaut from another planet. Because it is nonsense. And it is bullshit, and that's not what's going on. I think that that's really cool, and I think that's what helps make the twist not ruin the movie on a rewatch, and also if it's spoiled for you in advance. Because it doesn't matter. Because what it's saying and what and how the characters react all kind of... It's almost like the movie was aware that could be spoiled, and it sought to work around that. So I think that that's really cool that works for it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and you have just fantastic performances all throughout the movie. You have, of course, the great Charlton Heston. You have Cornelius and Zero, which are great. You have Dr. Zaius, which is probably my favorite character in the movie. Just all around great. The debate scene, or the trial scene, I guess it's more like, fantastic. I love the subtle moment where the orangutans, like, one of them puts his hand over his ears and the other one covers his eyes and the other one covers his mouth, like, genius.
The hear no evil, see no evil thing. Yeah, well, that was a dare. I'm sure you know, and they weren't even going to use that, but they ended up liking it so much, and it's great. It's really, really powerful, and it's great social satire too, because that's like a really exaggerated interpretation of our modern politicians, where it's like, I don't like what you're saying. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with your different opinions. So fuck off. Like it's kind of funny how relevant it still is.
That's another thing. It's fascinating even to just watch, like, the behind the scenes of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's that famous story where the people, obviously they would be in the ape makeup all day long because it would just take too long to take it off in between, like, whatever they were doing. So they're in these ape makeups all day long, and they go to lunch, like, as apes. And it's fascinating because, like, it winds up becoming like an unexpected sociology experiment, because all the chimps would sit and eat lunch with each other, and all the orangutans would eat lunch with each other, and all the gorillas would stick together, and then the human cast members,
yeah, just because they all looked different and they all looked this, and they joined with who was the same, like, and apparently, like, they talked to them, like, it wasn't even like there was no thought behind it. It was just they just did it.
Yeah.
So that it's fascinating. It's a social experiment in the best way, in that it just happened. There was no inciting it whatsoever for that reason. And Dylan, I think that's the interesting thing about Planet of the Apes, is that it's viewed by some people as accidental social commentary. Because, it's a very smart movie, it's very smartly made, there's a lot of really big ideas in it, but it's a summer blockbuster. It's an action movie, it's a big event movie, it's got Charlton fucking Heston in it. So, it is certainly an adventure movie that is there to thrill the audience as much as it is to make them think. In fact, Richard Zanuck, I think it's Richard Zanuck. Richard Zanuck was one of the producers of the original Planet of the Apes, and he maintained, I don't know if he still maintains this now, but in the most recent interview I've seen of him, he maintains that Planet of the Apes has no political agenda or political satire or commentary in it whatsoever. That it is a bare bones A to Z adventure story. There's nothing more to it than that. That there was no intention to have people think about it whatsoever, and that if there is a political commentary in it, that it went over his head. Guess what? It went over his head. But I think that's
I'm pretty sure what happened is that he just didn't get it.
Yeah, but Dylan, I think that's what works about it, though, because it was clearly made with the idea of, this has to work as that, though. This can't just be some weird existential deep thought movie. This has to be fun. This has to be entertaining. This has to work as a piece of entertainment. And I kind of feel like that's what a lot of movies like this lack, is that kind of desire to entertain and be a fun adventure movie on top of being a deep thinking movie.
Well, you either have your sci-fi films that are like, very B-movie creature feature-esque and they're all about having fun, or you have your sci-fi movies that are strictly cerebral and, kind of bore a lot of people.
Yeah.
As much as I love 2001: A Space Odyssey, it would have never made it on this list for that exact.
No, definitely not.
For that exact reason.
It is a boring movie. It's amazing, but it's boring.
It's the type of movie that you have to love for a very specific reason, and I do. It just wouldn't have made it onto this list. If we were making a list,
I don't love 2001. It's fine.
If we were making a list of what we thought were like objectively like best ever made, then it would be on there somewhere.
I would never do that though, because I have nothing to say. I'd be like, yeah, this is technically great, but I don't want to watch it ever again.
There's plenty.
All of the movies on this list, I'll rewatch anytime.
There's plenty I could say about it, like, the messages, the evolution of man, and how the movie actually ties in with like the messages of Kubrick's other movies. If you watch certain ones of Kubrick movies, you start to string together this sort of essay that he made over a number of years about like the nature of violence in mankind. It's fascinating. Anyway,
that's a lot of that is in Planet of the Apes as well.
But anyway, so you either have that kind of movie or you have your more B sci-fi movies that are all action and little substance. And Planet of the Apes, I think, manages to go perfectly in the middle.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. I wish more of them would be that way. Like you know, it's kind of a Jaws thing. It's a B movie made with an A budget, with an A script behind it, and it's got some real juice behind it. So
I mean, not to compare it to Star Wars again, but I think Star Wars, even though that didn't qualify for our list because it's more science fantasy, it does the exact same thing. And I don't know if it's because it saw Planet of the Apes doing that, but it kind of rides that line between fun and like philosophical.
I think the Star Wars movies are the best example of that in the modern age, where they work on two levels. They work as just fun adventure films, but then if you dig a little deeper, there's something there. There's something there about, you know, people and about relationships and about, you know, your psyche. There's a lot there. And
I mean,
think
you could write a whole...
I think Planet of the Apes has more than Star Wars. Definitely.
I mean, you could write a whole book all about like Yoda's philosophy. It would be fascinating.
But Star Wars, it's not so much like... Because Planet of the Apes is more like political philosophy and more kind of societal philosophy. Star Wars is a lot more about the inner journey. It's a lot more about people's like goals to be better and how do you better yourself and how can you be the best version of yourself that you can be. That's what Star Wars is about. This is about like, aren't people fucked up and how we hate each other and how we segregate each other and how we destroy our planet and ourselves and hate each other and all that.
Planet of the Apes, you know, one of the reasons it's so poignant for the time is that it also, whether intentionally or not, touches very much on like the issues of like racism that were a problem during the 60s. It's interesting, you know, that lunch story we were talking about before. The cast members sort of subconsciously became racist towards each other. While just like behind the scenes. It's fascinating stuff. I don't know what else to say about it. I did want to compliment the great... I love the score of this movie. I love the use of like...
God, it's amazing. Yeah.
The jungle drums and like the primitive sounds like mixed in with like, you know, like more traditional scoring.
It's Jerry Goldsmith, right?
I believe so.
Very atypical instruments that he used too. He used a lot of weird instruments to get that sound. It's very iconic.
Yes.
There's a lot of it, or there's a little bit of it in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I'm really glad they did that. There's a lot of really weird trumpet cues and weird horns, and I'm glad they threw that in there.
Yeah, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is probably like the second best movie in this franchise behind the original.
Yeah, probably. And then I think Rise is right after.
You know, do we even have to talk about the fact that this movie revolutionized makeup effects?
No,
I mean,
we don't. Let's move on. No, go ahead.
It revolutionized makeup effects. You know,
good job.
It's fucking beautiful. You wouldn't have your Predators without this.
No, yeah, we definitely, yeah. This movie, Predator, completely relies upon the existence of Planet of the Apes. To that point, though,
and now it's kind of sad, honestly. As much as I love the motion capture in the newer Planet of the Apes movies, it's kind of sad now that the franchise that revolutionized makeup effects is now gone. CG as everything else. If there's one thing I can compliment the Tim Burton movie on, is that the makeup effects in that were good.
Definitely. Here's one last thing I'll say, because I'm not gonna talk about this again when I get to my number one. I have something else I'll mention. I think that the cast in this is also what goes a long way to making it work. Like, the makeup wouldn't work if the actors weren't trying, you know? Like, and they did. They very much so did. They really cared. They really put their money where their mouth was.
And there was a great collaboration going on between the actors and the makeup artists, because they finally got makeup that the actors could act through, you know?
Yeah, because that was the goal, and that was the struggle, to get them to get stuff that they could act through. There was initially a test for very minimalistic makeup. I don't know if you've ever seen that test footage where there's a different guy playing Dr. Zayas.
Yeah, I've seen that test footage. It does not look very good.
I think it could work for a different project. Like, you know, like it's super minimalistic. That was done at the time where they were still planning on having the apes have like futuristic technology. So
well, if it was meant,
it's like, it looks like it's set in like the present day. Obviously, obviously the movie we got's a lot more stylized.
When they were shooting for a more straight-up adaptation of the book, which had, like, apes and helicopters and shit.
Yeah, and everything I've heard about the book makes it sound like the movie is better. I would like to go back and read the book at some point, but everything I've heard makes it sound like the movie is better.
Which, once they decided to go with the more primitive setting, some great production design. I love the look of, like, all the buildings and shit.
Yeah,
like
I think that's what makes it more stylized, and perhaps it makes the situation feel more impactful because it's a very different society than our own and scarier because it's kind of like exaggerated, concentrated versions of what's wrong with our society.
Also, fantastic costume designing. I love the outfits that the apes wear. It feels like something that a culture would really come up with, but just a culture that you've never seen before. Um,
Yeah.
Fantastic. All of it's great. um,
What's the name of the actor who plays Dr. Zaius? Maurice something.
yeah, it's Maurice something. I can never remember the last name.
I only know that because that's the name of the orangutan in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and it's supposed to be a reference to that.
I feel bad that
what's his name?
I feel bad
Maurice
that I can't.
Evan? No, it's not it.
I think it might be Evans.
Maurice, I don't know. I'm gonna look it up quick. It's gonna bother me.
Yeah.
He is fucking amazing. I think one of the
he's
best
great.
scenes in the movie is when Charlton Heston and him, George
Are
Taylor
having
and him,
the-
they're in his office having a little one-on-one. Fucking George Taylor is like, I grew up in Fort Wayne, and he's like, Fort Wayne, a military fortification, clearly something you must have picked up. It's amazing.
Yeah, it takes a hell of an actor to like stand toe to toe with like Charlton Heston in any scene and like command the screen as much as he is. Because Charlton Heston was one of those actors who was just graced with a sort of natural charisma, and so it takes quite a bit of talent.
Maurice Evans, huh? Okay.
And so it takes quite a bit of talent to sort of stack up against that, and I think he did fantastically.
And let's also not forget to mention the director, Franklin Schaefer here. I think that's his name. Franklin Schaffner? Maybe? That might be it.
Franklin Shatner. No, Schaffner.
Yeah, Schaffner. Fuck. My IMDb's going crazy. Yeah, Franklin Schaffner. Incredible looking movie. Supremely directed. Very clever in how they pulled off the Statue of Liberty shot. Like, that was a bitch to pull off. Like, they didn't know how they were going to do that, but they did it in a really clever way.
Very well shot all around. I also really love the sequence, the wheat field sequence where you see the apes for the first time.
That is spectacular. What I love about it is that, because you can kind of criticize it because there are points before the reveal where you can see the apes, like in the distance.
Yeah.
But what's good about it is that when you do finally see them, the angle of it is so unique. Like, it's not like this big dead-on, like, shot, like, where it's like, fucking apes, man. It's like this weird kind of side-on, like, blurry, shaky image. And it's almost just like, it's like you just see them initially for the first time in real life, or it would just be like, it would be off-putting and you wouldn't be standing completely still and see, like, this cinematic view of them. It's very off-putting. So, D, is there anything else you wanted to say about Planet of the Apes?
No, well, just
so definitive, my God! Fuck Planet of the Apes, am I right?
just in case it's noticeable in the recording, so that the audience knows I'm on my phone now. So if there's a difference in my audio quality, that's why. I've been having some problems with my laptop.
Relationship problems.
Yes, we're breaking up. It's very sad. But Bill, before the call dropped, we were talking about the reveal in the grass. Did you finish what you were saying about that?
I think so. Basically, what I was saying was, it feels more realistic because it's an awkward angle and it's not like dead on. It's kind of a side view. It's shaky. It's a little blurry. It's a lot more powerful, and then it steadies out, and you really get like a big sense of, what the fuck is that? What is on top of that horse? You know, like it really works. Great characters, too, as we said. Not even just the cast, just the characters on the page are fantastic. Cornelius and Zira are so fucking charming. My God.
Yeah, I love them. It's so sad, too, when you get to the third one and they die.
Oh, they're so tragic. They're delightful. They're delightful. Anyway. All right, so I guess we
could do a whole separate long-ass video talking about Planet of the Apes. But since this was your number one, is there anything else you wanted to say about it before we...
No, I made sure I said everything I wanted to say. Except that, I'll say this one last thing. The beginning is odd because it takes a while to get to the actual planet of the apes, so to speak. You know, like, it takes a while for us to actually get to Ape City and to actually, you know, see what the society is like. Initially, it's just like we're in the middle of the desert. The Forbidden Zone, as it's called, of course, with some weird lightning and some fucking naked people running around and swimming and shit. Do you think that drags the movie down at all, or do you think that naturally builds into the Ape City stuff?
I don't think it drags the movie down.
I think...
I don't have a problem with it.
I think it works because it's meant to establish how isolated they are, and more than that, you know, initially they want you to feel like you're on an alien planet, and that does a really good job of doing that because, you know, you've got this weird lightning and shit, and there's no life anywhere, everything's deserted. It definitely gives that alien planet kind of vibe very well, and it definitely sets up a very ominous atmosphere for the whole movie, which I think is also balanced well because, again, it gets really fun later. The characters are really fun, and everybody's, you know, cracking wise even when shit's going south. It's just really great. It's really well balanced. It is definitely. I would go as far as to say I think it's one of the best movies ever made. Even like just it's a masterpiece. I love it.
It's pretty great. I mean, if we were doing a top 10 favorite movies list, it would definitely be on mine somewhere. I don't know how high, but it would be up there somewhere.
Oh no, definitely. I put it on mine. I did it once in a video. It was there. So why don't we move on to, I guess, my number 2 then we'll do your 1, then I've got an honorable mention that I can fill in for my 1. But Planet of the Apes is definitely number 1 for me. Like that is the single.
That's right. I forgot because of the order we did this in. We haven't done your number 2 yet, have we?
No, we have not. Yeah, Planet of the Apes is a masterpiece. Definitely my favorite science fiction film pre-Star Wars masterpiece. But my number 2, though, pretty damn good as well. Not as good. Definitely not as good, but certainly good as well.